Tonight, the police union is outraged over the firing of 4 Houston police officers, but the police chief says they crossed a line.
Those are 2 very strong differing opinions after those officers fired 21 shots at a man suffering from a mental health crisis back in April.
Hours after the officers were fired today, the chief released body cam video of the incident to the public. Matt Doherty takes a look at both sides.
Houston Burn Medical West location.
I'm off of I-10 before you get to Lockwood going to downtown. There's a man in the freeway.
It seems a little crazy, to be honest with you, but he lives in my backyard.
Houston police officers found 27-year-old Nicholas Chavez in an East Houston neighborhood before 10 o'clock that night. He was clearly in distress.
He's having some type of crisis or something.
We're here to help you. Just get it. Hey, do us a favor. Just get on the ground.
Chavez appears to have a piece of something metal in his hand. Officers shoot him with beanbag rounds. Then they tase him. The officer drops the taser, but Chavez continues to move closer. That's when the first shot is fired. Even though he's been shot and tased, the video shows Chavez cursing and taunting officers, telling them to kill him. At one point, he pops up out of a ditch, and officers shoot him again. Several minutes pass. Chavez sits on the concrete surrounded by officers. He appears to pull the wires of the discharged taser he sees on the ground. The officers open fire. Chavez is shot more than 20 times, and he dies. Immediately after the shooting in April, Houston police released a statement saying that Chavez picked up the taser and pointed it at officers. In fear of their lives, HPD said the officers opened fire. 4.5 months later, the story HPD Chief Art Acevedo tells is very different.
This is a matter of judgment. And if you're that fearful with 28 officers of a man that's been wounded already, I don't need you as a police officer. Do they want me to bring them back so they can do it again to somebody else? I don't think so. The video speaks for itself.
Acevedo says up until the very end of the incident, officers handled the situation well and says they had used a justifiable amount of force, but not at the very end.
If that's how little you value life, I don't need you in this department, because that's somebody's child.
All 4 officers who fired those 21 rounds that killed Chavez have been terminated.
Chief, I actually spoke with him, and he's, hey, Doug, this is obviously suicide by cop. I watched the video. It looks all good. I want to know what changed.
The police union argued the officers handled the subject in distress call exactly as they've been trained. We also learned that Chavez's toxicology report showed he had methamphetamine and alcohol in his body when he died.
This truly was a tragedy, but the chief is now spreading that tragedy to 4 other families by unjustly firing these officers and using them as political fodder.
Family members of Nicholas Chavez spoke to reporters during a phone call this afternoon. They say they won't be satisfied until all 4 officers are charged with crimes.
28 officers couldn't control one man and put one man in handcuffs.
Matt Doherty, KHU 11 News.
Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg says prosecutors will conduct a thorough investigation into Chavez's death and present their findings to a grand jury who will then decide whether any charges should be filed. Meanwhile, if you want to watch the entire